And for those who enjoy this channel and would love to support us financially, please feel free to hit that donate link. We'd greatly appreciate it. God bless.
It's all yours, SFT.
Hey guys, it's Standing for Truth, and we are live tonight. We have an exciting one. We've got TJump and John Maddox. They are going to be debating intelligent design. Both of them, they're not strangers to debates. They're both really good at debates, so we can guarantee this is going to be one to remember. We're going to have really flexible opening statements, no more than 10 minutes. And then we're going to jump into discussion for about 45 minutes, followed by a couple quick closing statements just to wrap things up. And as usual, a question and answer. So anybody in the chat has a question they want to ask one of the debaters, please tag either myself or praise I am that I am, and we'll be sure to ask your question. Before we go into the openings, what we'll do, I think it's fair to give each debater just a quick intro to kind of tell everybody who they are, what's going on at their channel, and so on. We can start with TJump. TJump, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I'm TJump. I debate theists and debunk pseudoscience stuff like intelligent design. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's good enough. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/TJump. About all you need to know.
Awesome. Thanks, TJump. And John, over to you, brother.
Well, thanks for having me fun with this. Provides plausible probable to search that in YouTube. Not the only reason, but a major foundation of the reason I started the channel was to address some of the arguments made by people like TJump, who claim that things are pseudoscience and not actually reasonable arguments to be made and conclusions to be reached. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks, John. Thanks to the both of you. I guess what we'll do is we'll jump into a flexible opening. We can start with you, John. I'll just put the clock at 10 minutes. You know, you guys don't have to use all of that time, of course. Whatever time's not used, what we'll do is we'll throw it into the discussion. So, John, over to you.
Well, tonight we're going to be discussing the aspect of intelligent design, and it's my position that it's a much more plausible and logical conclusion to reach given the evidence and the plethora of components that make up what enables life to exist. And when you compare them to any other aspects of things that we would consider impossible without an intelligent agent, to me, it seems like it requires a complete suspension of rational thought, logic, and reasonable thinking to believe that pure chance or determinism can be the reasonable explanation for our existence in the context of life. So in regards to that, I'm going to share my screen here. And let me know when this goes through.
I'm just going to jump in there real quick. I'm not sure if it's just me there, John, but it looks like there's a bit of a lag or a delay on your end. It could just be me, though. I just want to make sure before we get into a discussion that everything's flowing good. Is there any lag for you guys at all?
Yeah,
what kind of lag was coming through?
Lag, yeah.
So unless, yeah, John, usually your
audio lag or video lag?
Looks like more of a video lag, but usually you're good. I don't know, unless you want to like decrease the bandwidth or, and we can keep it going as is. And if there's any issues later, we can try and address them.
No, hang on. We'll just. All right, does that change anything up a little bit?
Maybe slightly better, yeah.
Okay. All right, so when you consider what enables life to exist, it's a fundamental component is information. So let's look at some if and then statements. So if information is immaterial and non-random information requires an intelligent agent, then intelligent agents are required for all controlled process instruction. If non-random information creation requires a mind and DNA genetic code contains non-random information, then a mind was required for genetic code to exist. If coding and programming information is immaterial and the medium which contains it is not relevant to its existence, then no undirected process can create it. If codes require intelligence to assign arbitrary values and decoding requires equal arbitrarily assigned values, and genetic code is encoded, transferred, and decoded, and gene expression requires translation of arbitrary values, then a mind was required for genetic code to exist. If programming requires if, then, else logic rules, and syntax, semantic, and pragmatics are required for its execution, and biological cells contain all of these and tools for execution, and no other programming would happen by chance, then an intelligent agent is required for the initial programming. If time-based controls are required for code execution and are executed by separate functions and are vital to embryo development and modify outcomes based on temporal variables and require simultaneous execution, then foreknowledge of the outcome is required. If literal nanomachines are required for programming execution and non-random information cannot be accessed without their prior existence, and their non-random formation instructions are encoded in the genetic code, then simultaneous existence is required. Therefore, if in any other context it is accepted that non-random information, coding, decoding, programming, time-based controls, and nanomachines require intelligent agents to exist, and if life requires all of these to exist and all observed organisms do, then intelligent design is the logical conclusion for our existence. Now, I say all of these things to create, a foundational component to this conversation, and all of the arguments that I made can easily be defended via scientific papers and relatively general acceptance of all of the top components of those if and then statements, other than the mind being required, because huge aspects of academia and atheists such as my opponent, TJump, are all desperately searching for ways around the blaringly obvious evidence that screams design and want to equate it to completely implausible and improbable options and creative ways to think of things that can potentially circumvent these mind-bending enigmas in regards to our existence. So the position I'm putting forth
Yeah, John,
the audience is that if
John, real quick, I stopped your time too. Don't worry. You're just having moments of where you kind of sound like a robot, as in the audio is glitching slightly. I'm not sure if it's good to get this all sorted out before the discussion, I guess would be the point.
We'll stop cam for right now.
Okay.
Is that modifying it at all?
Sounds good now. Yeah, I'll look out for it though.
Okay. Anyway, the ultimate point I'm making is there are very few individuals on this planet that if you made direct comparisons to a lot of the technologies that exist inside of our bodies and enable life to exist, in any other context, you would be considered out to lunch to claim that they happened by accident or by frozen accident or by pure chance. And which is why I wonder, in regards to things so vital, important, and fundamental as our very existence, why there is such desperate attempts to remove that basic logic from the equation in terms of our presence and consciousness. And I'll yield my time.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that opening there, John. We appreciate it. We'll hand it over to Tom. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Standing. Thanks for John for being here, and Praise for doing whatever Praise is doing. So essentially, the topic tonight is intelligent design, and is it actually a thing? And the answer is no, it's not a thing. And we can tell that very simply because evidence is whatever we can use to differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real. And I can imagine that being designed. Well, that can't tell the difference between what's imaginary and what's real. Or that's really complicated and I can think it's designed. Well, that can't tell the difference between what's imaginary and what's real. To tell the difference between what's imaginary and what's real, you need testable predictions. You need to be able to say, if my hypothesis is true, then I can predict something we don't know yet, do an experiment to confirm that prediction, be like, you see, I have a reason to believe that what was in my head as a hypothesis is actually a description of the world. Science can do that. The abiogenesis theories that science are working on, which aren't directly related to evolution, all of those make testable predictions, which we have made significant progress on. So we have significant evidence of the abiogenesis being purely natural processes. For example, RNA on clay. Like many intelligent design proponents like to say that, well, we need information, and information can only come from minds. Well, no, we've actually literally seen information being formed on clay from natural processes with no mind involved at all. So we just literally disprove their argument with observation. Like we've done it. We're done. Information can happen on its own. We're done now. There are also tons and tons of testable predictions we've made across the spectrum of abiogenesis. For example, just picking up the paper, the phys.org recent one that was published March 16th, 2020, scientists have discovered the origins of the building blocks of life. Woohoo! So we've actually discovered how proteins can form in this paper that was published a few weeks ago. Woohoo! And here's another great example of newscientist.com, the First Life, the search for the first replicator, where it just lists all of the progress since the 1960s to 2001 and dozens of papers that have been published showing discoveries in the origin of life research that have made testable predictions which have been confirmed, which show that the naturalistic hypothesis is the one that is supported because we can make testable predictions. Does it answer everything? No, it doesn't need to. It just needs to answer one thing. If we can say, here's one thing we don't know, and if my hypothesis is correct, here's the answer to that one thing, and we get it right, that's evidence. So in 2001, there was a process that yielded RNA enzyme called R18, which could stick 14 nucleotides, building blocks in RNA and DNA, onto existing RNA and using another RNA as a template, so self-replicating RNA. So we can use natural processes to create information and then self-replicate. We know RNA can form on clay. It's another example of it just forming on its own with no human intervention. And this site I listed, the newscientist.com paper, can just list dozens of them. You can just go through one at a time and say, here's another testable prediction, which was made by the natural hypothesis, which is evidence of the abiogenesis. As far as I know, intelligent design makes no testable predictions. It's just imaginary. I can imagine complex things being designed by a mind. Well, that's fantastic. That's not evidence. I can't imagine natural processes designing things or creating this complicated stuff. Great. That's an argument from incredulity. What you can imagine doesn't matter. The only thing that counts as evidence is novel testable predictions. If we can create a hypothesis and say, if this hypothesis is true, then I can see this result. And then if we do a test and confirm that result, that's evidence. And the only side that has that is the naturalist side. So we have lots of evidence and you have none. You're just essentially using your imagination to imagine a way that's easier for your brain to understand, which reality just doesn't care. And we can use the exact same fallacious intelligent design argument to argue that natural processes do it. For example, we've never seen a human build a galaxy or a universe or a solar system. We've seen natural processes that do those things, but never a human. So if we want to say the universe is kind of like a galaxy, well, it's more reasonable to conclude that actually natural processes do those and not minds, because we've never seen a mind do anything like that. The same thing applies in both ways. It's just an argument from analogy and doesn't work for either. It's just a useless junk argument. So we know information can form on its own in natural processes. The natural hypothesis is consistently making testable predictions, which are confirmed in the laboratory over and over and over again throughout every single year. And there's absolutely no evidence that supports intelligent design. So as far as I can tell, and as far as all the scientists can tell, the only hypothesis that is actually credible is the naturalist hypothesis, which is why in the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial, where intelligent design was put in a court case, in a federal court case, it was ruled to be junk because it's not actually a reasonable hypothesis. It does nothing. makes no predictions. It has no clarity. It doesn't explain what the intelligent design information actually is. There are scientific definitions of information, but those exist in matter. So there's no such thing as information that only exists created by minds. It just doesn't exist. There's no such definition. In physics, information is just anything that has properties to it. So crystals have information, matter has information, electrons have information, rocks have information, everything has information. So based off all the scientific definitions, information is everywhere, whether it's human or not. So again, there's just nothing that supports intelligent design. It's just a made up hypothesis that has no basis to conclude it's not just imaginary.
Okay, thanks so much for that opening there, Tom. We appreciate it. I'm going to set the timer here for the discussion. That's always everyone's favorite part. So let's keep it respectful, and we'll try and keep it a free-flowing dialogue. And the clock is set, so whoever wants to start, take over.
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention the arguments he brought up. Like, none of those are actually arguments. An if-then statement isn't an argument. It's an if-then statement. So I can just reject the first if, and then the conclusion that then doesn't follow. But none of his actual if-then statements actually worked, because they're just assertions. Like I say, if a cat is a dog, then a dog is a dolphin. Just doesn't mean anything. You'd actually have to have a conclusion there, which would mean therefore cats are dolphins. You'd have to have a therefore. So if, then, therefore is how the structure should work. But none of his actual conclusions followed from any of his premises. So like he said, if certain kinds of cells require, I forget the exact wording he used, then it requires a brain. Well, that's just not the case. Like, you could just say, yes, we can just grant it requires this kind of complexity process, but I can just reject the then statement and say, no, that's false. So nothing about his argument actually worked. It's pretty much nothing, just gibberish as far as I can tell. Like, it'd be better to put it into a premise conclusion format.
Well, Tom, I apologize for you apparently not having the knowledge to understand the significance of the points I was making and the thens. Those are my assertions. The other ands are things that are recognized in.
No, none of that was.
Okay, you
bring one up. Bring one up.
Hey, I let you talk, man. You gonna shut up and let me?
No, I want you to.
Are you letting me?
No. Can you share screen? Can you share screen? I want to share screen so I can see it.
Oh, well, hang on. I'm going to respond to what you said. Some of the things you said.
Yeah, absolutely. But
and then I will. I'm happy to go down that rabbit hole with you. So first off, your RNA world stuff, RNA on clay, all the information being formed. Okay, so that's actually been dramatically dismissed for a variety of reasons. One of which that the RNA that they did get to form did it in a very pattern-based structure. And in case you weren't paying attention in some of my if-then statements, I specifically designated things in relation to biology as non-random, which everybody knows that the things that enable coding execution and syntax, semantics, and pragmatics are the result of non-random information. And in conjunction with that, your whole argument about, oh, there's all this other information, all these different things. Yes, but they don't prescribe outcomes. And
I have no idea what you're talking about right now. Like, what? So, for example, most stuff in physics is determined. Like, so you're breaking up. You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Oh, here, I'm going to jump in real quick there. John, you're breaking up pretty good there.
What do you?
But like I said earlier, John, John, I'm just gonna. So you're breaking up pretty good there. We want Tom to be able to hear and understand, what you're saying, the arguments you're putting forth. Typically, there's no issues on your end. Did you want to try and leave the stream and then jump back in, or just do? Because we just want to make it a smooth dialogue. All right, perfect. Just to avoid dead air, yeah, for the audience. So next Friday we're going to have Jordan on here again. He runs the podcast Reasons to Doubt, the Atheist podcast. He's a nuclear engineer. He'll be debating Bill Morgan, creation versus evolution. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. And hopefully John can jump back in here. John? How we
I'm
doing?
wondering if everybody at home is sucking up bandwidth in my neighborhood.
It's possible.
Am I still breaking up?
No, we can hear you fine now.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so my last question was, I have no idea what anything you're saying is regarding. So, because my argument for RNA on clay is that information can form on clay. Like most of physics is determined; it's not random. There's some parts of physics that are random, so that really doesn't help your case at all. Yes, clay is determined, and how chemicals interact on clay is also determined. So RNA forming on clay is determined.
But
Yes.
I got you. However, as I was saying, I guess I was breaking up, is that entire premise of RNA forming on clay being a reasonable and plausible foundation for the non-random information that enables a code, the genetic code, to exist.
Wait. I never said that. I never.
No, I'm responding to your whole
No,
portion about
I
information.
never said that, so you're not. Because my only argument was
you just said that RNA forming on clay and information being formed in that manner.
Yes, but I never said anything about the origin of life. I never said anything about the RNA world. So
okay,
my only argument was RNA forms on clay, which is
let people finish sentences. Okay.
Yes, you have to actually address what I said.
I am addressing. If you let me have commas and clauses, then maybe I'll address your statements before you interrupt.
No, you're not. You were addressing something I didn't say. That's why I was stopping you. So I didn't say anything about the origin of life.
Actually, Tom, I'm responding to your whole argument about information existing all over the place, and there not being a distinction between things that are non-random and ultimately prescribe outcomes.
What? I never said that.
Versus.
So again, all I said was
I am creating a separation of your argument of that all this information all over and all these different things, right? You said that, correct?
Yes. Information.
And what I am stating is that the non-random information that results in an outcome, there's a differentiation between that sort of information, which is what is required for life's ultimate existence.
Again, I'm not following because you said information.
Let me break it down for you.
Well, let me try to explain to you why I'm not following. So you said information that leads to an outcome is what is required for life or something like that. Well, information that leads to an outcome is like two rocks hitting each other. That's information that leads to an outcome.
Not in the context of biology and what is recognized in the context of the genetic code, which, as I argued at the very beginning, is a fundamental requirement for all observed forms of life.
I'm still not following what you're saying, because in biology, in all of the academic non-pseudoscience fields, and in physics, the information is exactly like the two rocks hitting each other. So I'm not sure what the distinction you're making is.
Okay. That's a very ignorant statement, because that is absolutely not what is stated in many papers.
Oh no, it literally is. Like the paper defining information in academic fields in biology is Shannon information theory, in a paper he published in 1956. I think it was maybe 58, where it defines information as a contrast between entropy. I can actually give you the equation, and it has nothing to do with intelligence. There's no reference. Shannon was in fact an atheist, so not surprising. And information is again just process. It's a stochastic system. It doesn't have anything to do with minds. It doesn't matter whether it's intelligently designed or not. That's not a part of the definition of information in any academic field ever, as far as I know.
Okay, so apparently you're not very familiar with biosemiotics, but which has been changing that. But there's also been quite a few papers recently
changing what?
That just saying that there's no distinction between what is happening in the in terms of biology versus two rocks slamming together against each other. For example, here's one from Abel and Trevor's cause and effect physical determinism, in other words, cannot account for the programming of sequence-dependent biofunction. There's paper from the...
Do you have any in actually academic papers, like journals, not pseudoscience journals?
Okay, so you want some Royal Society?
Sure, yes.
Okay, cool. Let's do that then. Okay. This drives us immediately to the conclusion that the DNA in organisms functions as information, and that the internal DNA-dependent dynamics of cells embody functional information processing, that is, computation. DNA-based molecular biological computation can be said to control, perhaps even direct, the entire panoply of biochemical events occurring in cells.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So,
Okay. Okay. So is it your position then that the information in the software, the source code that is enabling us to have this debate right now, is it your assertion that there is no difference between that type of information and two rocks slamming together?
No, information as defined in chain information theory is a change in entropy. So
I'm asking you from not from a purely philosophical perspective.
That's
in your
not
opinion,
philosophical.
I'm asking you a direct question. Do
answer
you think there is any difference in the origin of the information that is required for this conversation to be happening right now?
Sure, yeah. The origin of the information is different, but the information is not different. They're still both just information.
What is required for the origin of the information that is enabling us to have this conversation?
Electricity, wires.
No.
Computers?
What's the original source origin of the source code?
Humans designing machines.
Okay, and what do humans have to have in order to do that?
Minds.
Okay, so if what enables us to have this conversation requires minds, and the genetic code has if then else functions.
Well, no, that's not
that are not purely as a result of baseline chemical reactions.
Well, they are. That's if then statements are not required. Minds are not required to create those. Those happen in nature all the time. In fact, there's a certain kind of fungus that has tons of those. There's no mind at all. It creates its own.
But it has the source code that enables the if-then functions. So you just said that a biologically existing
there are none
that already had the crystals do.
Crystals have if then else statements. Yes.
No, they do not.
Yes, they do. That's a proven fact. We can demonstrate that in like 5 seconds.
They do not have non-random pattern formation.
Yes, they do. That's literally what a crystal means. It's a non-random pattern formation. That's literally what a crystal is, non-random pattern formation. Okay. Like what?
Okay. So do you even understand how the syntax, semantics, and pragmatics works in DNA? Yes or no?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by those terms because those are not terms used in biology as much. Those are kind of abstractions.
Okay, so there's plenty of. So I guess you actually haven't read as many papers as you think you have because there's more than a few that discuss the detailed semantics, syntax, and pragmatics. I mean,
yes, but those are not technical terms. Those don't exist in biology. Those are abstractions, like saying that. Like there's a that there. Yes, there is. It's not actually a term in biology to refer to a specific process. It is an abstraction of a set of processes, like a heap. Like that is a heap. A heap isn't actually a thing that is defined in physics. It's a collection of stuff.
Okay, well, I think you need to go back and read.
I know this for a fact.
I don't think you do because
I do. I absolutely
many papers specifically on the context of the linguistics and the semantics and the pragmatics. And there was a paper in 2015, I think, from the Royal Society, where they specifically talk about the programming aspects, and not from a figurative perspective, but a literal one that is engaged by the cell as a whole.
I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. So the term syntax and semantics.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Clearly not. So
no, I clearly do, and I know you're trying to circumvent this. You're trying to circumvent this.
I'm directly trying to answer. So when you use the term syntax and semantics in biology, it is an analogous term to refer to a set of processes in what the DNA does, but it is not itself a collection of them. It's an abstraction. You're not going to be like syntax in biology, and it's not going to come up with a set of biological functions. It's not a deliberate thing in biology. It's an abstraction of a collection.
What is a codon?
What is a codon?
Yeah.
I have no idea. What is a codon?
A codon is a triplet of base pairs that is equal to a amino acid after the translation process. The syntax I'm referring to, which is clearly and very detailedly researched and delineated in genetics, is all the codon sequences that result in the amino acid translation process. Now, do you even know how genes are expressed? Do you know the process by which
wait, go back. So again, syntax in the sentence you just said is again an abstraction. It's not a deliberate thing in biology. If you Google,
Yes, it is.
no, it's not. That's not how the word syntax works.
Yes, it does. In this context, yes, it does.
No, that's literally wrong. So just the word syntax, what it means is it is a relationship between systems. It's like a connected system or order, a union of things, but it isn't a deliberate this union. This union is not a syntax. A syntax is just an abstraction of connected systems and unions. It doesn't refer to a particular kind of a thing. It's an abstraction by definition. I don't know what you're even saying.
I think you may need to Google that, man. A syntax.
I'm looking at it right now.
A set of rules for or an analysis of the syntax of a language, the branch of linguistics that deals with syntax. Now, in the context of the genetic code, your syntax is the 64 different possible codon combinations, which equal the 20 amino acids. That is the syntax. Then you have semantics aspects of that, which are executed via methylation and other epigenetic factors, which alter the outcome of the core data. Now, in the context of a code, what is your definition of what a code is and how it is actually processed? What are the components that are required for a code?
I'm just going to go with the Google definition. So what is your argument here?
I just asked you a question. What is?
I'm going to go with the Google definition. You want me to Google it for you? Code.
No, I want to know what you think it is.
I go with the Google definition. I'm just going. Code is whatever Google defines it as. I don't actually know a strict definition for it. Code definition. System of words, letters, figures, or other symbols to substitute other words, letters, and etc., especially for purposes of secrecy.
So the reason I'm asking. So the reason I'm asking you, if you actually have any knowledge of biology, in spite of what you keep claiming, I don't know. Do you actually know how?
Is there an argument coming?
Yeah, there is. And we're setting a stage. Do you know how a gene is?
I'm not going to answer any more do you know questions because it's a waste of time. Show me the argument. Like, I know more than you about literally everything. So just tell me the argument.
I want to know if you know.
I don't care what you want to know. Tell me what the argument is. Tell me what the argument is.
All right. So for a gene to be expressed, there are a plethora of different functions and nanomachines that are required for it to happen. But in the transcription process, and going back to Shannon information theory, what's the steps? You have encode, messenger channel, decode, right? And there's two different syntax that are required on both sides for the decoding process. So on the DNA genetic code perspective, you have codons. It is then transcribed into mRNA. It is then taken to a ribosome. I'm getting to the point, bro. Just shut up and listen.
I'm still not saying
now, it is then translated into something that is
more gibberish.
This is not gibberish. This is
what
actually
is the argument.
This is one of the greatest enigmas of biology. So let me finish.
Yes, something we don't know is called an argument from ignorance.
No.
So I know there's lots of stuff we don't know, but that's not evidence for design. How did you get this to design?
I'm getting there. If you'll stop interrupting.
You've done like 5 minutes. Like when? It takes me 30 seconds to articulate an argument.
Okay, so arguing existence is a little bit more complicated than 30 seconds.
Really?
Now, okay. Well, if your mind is that narrow, then no wonder you're still.
No. I can take your argument and just rephrase it in like 30 seconds. Stuff is complicated. We can't explain it. Therefore, design. That's your argument.
Okay, let's rephrase.
So you're in the stuff is complicated part right now.
Could the Morse code exist without a mind? Yes or no?
Sure. It doesn't exist with a mind. It exists as a piece of paper. Like, what do you mean exist? It's a code. It's a process. It's like you input one thing, output another thing. The Enigma machine or some other externalist machine can have this without a mind. Like computers have processes without minds. They can exist without a mind.
Clearly. Yeah, but they had to have a mind to create the logic rules, the syntax, semantics, and the pragmatics of the source code that enables them to function. So are you saying that computers could exist without minds?
Yes, they do. It's called biology.
So you just admitted that biology has computational abilities, which
I never said it didn't.
So do all computers require logic rules?
Everything in the universe requires logic rules.
Okay. But you're saying that if then else and temporal based variables can exist without any kind of intelligence being required. Is that your position?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, crystals have those, rocks have those, gravity has those, all the laws of nature have those.
So you're saying that rocks can somehow execute other things that are based on different time requirements. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, crystals grow at a specific time intervals. They don't instantly.
No, I'm saying you're saying they can. You're saying that rocks can build other things.
Yes,
By themselves.
That's what crystals do. They build.
Let's talk about basic rocks. Can
Yes,
they build things
crystals
other than copying themselves? Can they build other things?
Yes.
By themselves. What?
Yes, rocks, when they collaborate with other minerals, build new things. That's what rocks, because rocks is just a combination of minerals. And so if you focus on a specific kind of mineral, it builds that new mineral. If it comes into a different chemical reaction, it builds a different kind of a mineral. I mean, this is not hard. Like if you take a proton and it hits a neutron, it builds an atom. If you take a proton, put it next to another proton, they repel. That's an if-then statement. If neutron, build proton. If proton, repel. That's an if-then statement.
And you're saying that they controlled whether or not those protons hit?
No, they didn't control anything.
So that is the key variable to what we're talking about in terms of what's happening in biology.
Well, biology is the same. Biology is just, again,
versus uncontrolled actions.
Biology is the same. It's just an uncontrolled chemical process. Like, I don't know what you're saying here.
You think it's uncontrolled?
Yes, it's literally just a chemical process.
What is an enzyme?
It's an enzyme.
What do enzymes
is an enzyme. So
and what do they do? They alter chemical reaction outcomes.
Yes, just like any chemical. That's what all chemicals do. So like if you add bleach to a chemical reaction, it'll make a different chemical reaction. It'll alter the chemical reaction. So physics does control things like that, just like in any chemical reaction is controlled by the chemicals in the reaction. So there's nothing spectacular about that.
Yeah,
so,
but
again, they're
being
you're breaking up again.
Separately from chemical.
Say it again.
Am I still breaking up?
Say something.
Okay, so I think we need to turn this back to a basic biology lesson in the context of.
Well, you still haven't given an argument yet. Biology doesn't help you at all.
You keep denying the fundamental pieces of what is being questioned in biology on a regular basis, which is that deterministic chemistry does not explain biology.
No, that's the consensus in biology.
The deterministic chemistry does?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Then, yeah, you are clearly uninformed. If you think that purely deterministic chemistry, okay, do you know what a microRNA is?
Again, so get to the argument. I can just say deterministic forces are the cause of essentially everything in biology. That's the consensus. Like just Googling, looking at the paper I just listed.
Okay, so going back to 2001,
someone will fill a container with pretty chemicals and keep it under the right conditions and watch life emerge. That experiment will be done. Yes.
I'm talking about what is being observed in the real world.
That's a scientist doing these experiments. What are you talking about?
Nucleotide and eventually amino acid sequences are both physiodynamically inert. This leads to deterministic chemistry no longer being able to explain biological outcomes.
So again, so no one in biology accepts that.
Okay, I just literally read that from a paper.
Okay, still not accepted in biology. So can you give me an argument?
Okay, so let's go back to microRNAs. So since you don't understand what
talking about biology isn't going to help you, because I can just Google the consensus in biology is natural. Done. So anything in biology doesn't help you. So give me an argument. What is your argument? You haven't presented a single argument yet. You just keep babbling about different topics in biology, which I've researched in the past. So I don't need to research them again because I know they also lead to naturalism. But you haven't given an argument. Like, what is your argument?
Okay, Tom. So you can just sit here in denial, and I don't have to.
I
don't have to go along with your position of going with a majority. I'm putting forth whether or not there is reasonable conclusions for intelligent design. So
yes, I'm waiting.
In spite of your stunningly ignorant denial,
saying I'm ignorant isn't an argument. What is the argument?
If you'll stop interrupting me, I'll actually finish the sentence.
I've been waiting for like 15 minutes, and you haven't said anything yet. Like, where is the argument?
Tom, is it your opinion that
what is my opinion an argument now? Like, what is the argument? Say like premise one.
We're having a discussion, okay?
Well,
so
yeah, I'm trying
I don't
to
have to listen, Tom. I don't have to follow your structure.
Well,
okay?
yeah, I'm trying to understand the context.
I'm not your little boy over here that you
yes,
can just tell me what
that's
to do.
great. You need to actually phrase the sentences in a way that they make sense to the person you're having a conversation with. And right now, I can ask you like, what is your favorite color? But that's not relevant to the conversation. So you need to explain your argument. Make an argument that is relevant to the conversation so I can understand it.
Tom,
that's what I'm asking for.
Is it your position that there is nothing that is impossible to occur by chance and determinism?
Unless it's a logical contradiction, that's just by definition what possible means.
So you are saying that that all the things of technology that we enjoy, are you suggesting that they can all exist by pure chance?
Sure, but it's so improbable it wouldn't happen, but it's possible.
Okay, so the improbability of life existing is beyond the total number of chemical reactions that have happened in the observed universe.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Actually, the argument is that given the known natural processes, the probability of life is that, which I agree with. I mean, we don't know all of the natural processes. So given the known natural processes, the life occurring using the known natural processes is that small. But that isn't all natural processes. That's just the known natural processes. Just like 10,000 years ago, if we said, given the known natural processes, the probability of these producing lightning is 0. It's because we didn't know the natural processes that produced lightning. But that doesn't mean that all natural processes have a 0% chance of producing lightning, only the ones we know about. So I grant that given all of the natural processes we know about, those working together to produce life is extremely small. I agree.
So are you suggesting that even though the vast majority of chemists are in agreement that purely random abiogenesis from a chemistry perspective, not just based on what we know, because we know a hell of a lot about chemistry at this point of what is possible from a binding perspective.
Wait.
So if they I'm finishing sentences. Stop interrupting, bro.
You said not based off of what we know? Like everything is always based off of what we know. I don't know what you mean by that. You said not only based off of what we know, chemists know that.
I don't know. You keep interrupting me, man. I probably hadn't finished my
right, I'm asking for clarification.
I work with complex clauses, and you keep interrupting me in the middle of clauses. And as I'm sure you know, that semantically that can make a different variation to the outcome, right?
Well, yeah, but if you don't make sense in the first clause, the second clause doesn't make sense either.
Well, the second clause is what can make the first clause make sense.
No, it can't. It's like by definition, if you say gibberish in one sentence, then adding more gibberish in the second one doesn't help. So I mean, you said
if you don't know what the outcome is, you don't know if it's gibberish or not. You're making a pre-assumption.
You made a statement. You said
okay. Anyway,
using things we don't know. What do you mean? Using more stuff than what we know. Everything we do is based off of what we know. So how can we use stuff not based off of what we know? It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. We're going to have to go to a response and rebuttals. Otherwise, I'm done with this conversation because I'm somebody who doesn't even know what my end point is and obviously doesn't have enough knowledge of biology to actually even have a reasonable conversation about this. So let's go to.
I mean, that sounds like you got your head up your ass, because all I asked was what do you mean by when you say we're going to use things not only what we know but also what we don't?
I think I said based on what we know. I may have broken up. I don't know.
Oh, if you based on what we know, I'm okay with that. I grant that. Go for it.
That's anyway.
You're saying that chemists are using what we know to.
So anyway, based on what we know of chemistry, and we know quite a bit, and at some point there is a root of what is possible just based on chemistry, right? There's only so many different ways things can bind and different processes that can be executed.
Only given known things. Like you can't say there's a base to what is possible given everything. There's only a base to what's possible given what we currently know.
I understand that, but the point I'm making is at some point there is a ultimate base of what is possible.
Sure.
Correct?
Somewhere.
Okay. Right. So anyway, the point I'm making is there are quite a few folks who have in the origin of life research field that are circling back around to the requirement of frozen accident being the only reasonable and plausible explanation because of what they now know extensively of chemistry, is that the syntax requirements and have to exist, and the proteins required for their execution, the data execution, is so stunningly improbable that it is no longer plausible to think they can happen purely by random chance.
Granted, but only given the things we know. So that doesn't tell us anything.
But again, that comes back to the point I made at the beginning, a few minutes ago, was at some point there is a root. And at some
we're
point,
nowhere near that.
Per you.
Per everyone in science, because by definition, science doesn't give us access to that kind of information. It never says we're done and this is the root. It always says there could
Right,
always
which
be
is
more.
why I go back to the things you kept interrupting me on, is when we actually look at the observed outcome of what is life and the simultaneous processes that are required to be executed on the molecular level to result in the components that enable life to exist. Unless you are willing to conclude that all of these things can happen simultaneously, when the improbability of even one of them happening at all, let alone all of them happening simultaneously, and the whole term is coevolution these days, is so mind-bendingly improbable that you're suspending the plausibility component of what usually constitutes a scientific theory. Like, hey, yeah, cool. There's something that's there's a minuscule probability this could happen. However, when you look at all of these other variables in context, it's not plausible. So let's go on to something else. But in the context of what's plagued academia and people such as yourself, you are all looking for ways to avoid an intelligent agent being the ultimate root when it actually solves huge amounts of the conundrums that people are facing, which is things such as, like, in nanotechnology now, I don't think anybody would actually think that the nanotech that's being created by synthetic chemists would ever happen by accident and without an intelligent agent directing it. And those technologies are pathetic in complexity compared to the components that enable life to exist. So if you wouldn't think that the ones that humans are building would ever happen by accident and without intelligent agents, why is it reasonable to conclude that ones that are exponentially more complex did?
Testable predictions, that's why. So the first thing is that intelligent design doesn't actually solve anything. That's why it's not accepted in science. We're not trying to avoid an intelligent designer. If it was a hypothesis that made testable predictions, we'd accept it like any other. That's all you have to do to be valid in science, is make testable predictions. So the reason we go with abiogenesis is because it makes testable predictions. We can say if the origin of life came about by natural processes, we would expect that the precursors to life, like DNA and RNA, would come about through natural processes. And then, oh, look, we discovered a natural process that produces RNA. That's a testable prediction that we confirmed. But we don't have any of those of intelligent design. And so it doesn't actually solve anything. We can imagine an intelligent designer doing it, but it doesn't solve any problems, because to be a solution, you need to make testable predictions. So I can imagine a leprechaun knocking that cup over, but that isn't a solution just because I don't know what knocked the cup over. To be a solution, I'd have to make a testable prediction and say, well, if it was a leprechaun, then we would see blah, 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 and then discover that and be correct. Then it would be a solution. But without that testable prediction, it's not a solution, it's just an assertion. So intelligent design is just an assertion until you make testable predictions, which is why we go with abiogenesis, because it makes testable predictions, which have been confirmed, hundreds, thousands of them every year in papers all over the world. That's why we go with that one and not design. Now, we're not trying to avoid a designer. We don't actually care if they're a designer or not. You just need to provide evidence, which is testable predictions, and you haven't.
Okay, so that was a nice dodge of always going
what was
back
the dodge?
to the testable predictions and things of that nature. That we're talking about a deduction based on the evidence of technology. So the evidence I'm putting forth is that we have coding, which nobody in their right mind would actually, and it's a relatively established premise in linguistics, that outside of the code that makes up our genetic code, no other syntax, semantics, and pragmatics have ever been devised by a non-intelligent agent. And in spite of the fact you kept interrupting me in the context of codons and the syntax there is a syntax. It's a well-established premise. And when it's being translated, and the process is called translation, The codon is being read through one codon at a time, and the amino acid, which is being leveraged in protein synthesis, never chemically interacts with that codon. So you have two arbitrary values that require a middleman translator. So if there is not, and they've been desperately trying to find this and have finally concluded, and if you want to go research it, feel free, there is no chemical explanation for how the ribosome knows it's the correct amino acid other than computation being executed.
Right. There's lots of things we don't know in biology. That's not evidence for anything. It's just an argument from ignorance. I mean, yes.
There's a whole thing called biological computation, and they conclude that there is
given known process.
There's computation being executed there, and it's being
I grant that. I agree with that. So, but there is
information.
The part I disagree with is that there is no chemical solution. That's false. There's no known chemical solution. None of the known natural processes can explain this. We agree. Like everyone in biology agrees with this. We don't have a solution yet. Otherwise, it would be solved.
And they also agreed there's immaterial information housed inside of it.
Information is an abstract. So all information is physical in biology and physics. Information is literally a physical thing.
No, actually it's not. There's translational pausing, which is temporal-based controls.
Information is physical. Information is physical. Physics. Step one. Yeah, physics information right there. Physics is information is a process of particles. It's physical. So in physics and biology, information is physical. It's not an abstract thing.
Okay, so are you saying then that there is no information that is immaterial?
Not in physics or biology, no.
No, I'm talking about in the real world. Is there information that is immaterial?
Using the abstract colloquial
answer the question. Is there information that is immaterial?
I am answering the question. Using the abstract made up definition by humans, yes. Using physics, no. It doesn't exist in physics or biology.
Okay, so is the information that is currently housed on your hard drive, is that physical or immaterial?
Physical.
No.
It's literally on a hard drive. A hard drive means it's made of stuff. It's literally physical.
Yeah, the information. Okay, if you write on, let's break this down. If you write with an ink pen on a piece of paper, there was a chemical process that bound the ink to the paper,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Is the information that is contained in the words, is that physical or immaterial?
It's physical because the information is actually contained in our brains.
The medium is physical. The information itself can be translated by something that's physical, but the information itself is not.
Well, no, the translation is the information. So the translation process of how to take a specific combination of letters and make it into something meaningful is contained within the brain. So that's actually physical.
Well, you have a extraordinarily materialistic mindset, and there's a huge percentage of the planet and academia that would disagree with you in the context of information being immaterial.
I don't think so. I'm looking at the Phil Surveys paper. In philosophy, it's about 70% are materialist physicalists. Then about neuroscience, it's about 80 or 90% are physicalists. In physics, it's about 70%. I don't know. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, maybe 30% is a large percent. I'm okay. I'll grant that.
Okay, so let's just put this all into different context here. So, it is your argument and your position that information that is controlled and prescriptive and results in variable outcomes based on foreknowledge of the requirements. You are saying that is a completely naturalist outcome that does not require intelligence. Is that correct?
Well, that's my hypothesis, but I wouldn't assert that. So my assertion would be there is something we don't know. We don't know what caused.
No. That's not what I asked. I asked in the context of technologies that we currently engage in, and logic rules and things that require foreknowledge of the outcome in order and require the logic rules to have been implemented prior to the execution. Are you saying that it can be accomplished purely by natural processes and does not require intelligence?
Well, no, I'd say those do require intelligence but I'd say intelligence are physical. But you're saying computers require intelligence as far as we know. So
my point is that if in life, temporal-based controls that require variable modifications in order to execute a function exist in our bodies and are essential to life existing. But you just stated that in another context that would require intelligence.
No, I said computers require intelligence. Like temporal-based transitions of information can happen without computers. You don't need computers.
No, I said functions and logic rules. It doesn't matter whether it's computer or anything else.
Well,
I'm talking about if I have to set up multiple variables, right, for a machine, you got to have multiple variables, and they can be modified based on time-based components and stress-related and external functions. But I have to have them accounted for prior to those variables coming into play in order to have a successful outcome.
Yep.
Did I have to have foreknowledge of those potential variables when I built it in the first place?
No, because we can see that happening in physics all the time.
I'm talking about things that we experience on a day-to-day basis. I'm talking about real-world stuff.
We do experience physics on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I'm not talking about things from a physics perspective and theoretical. I'm talking about real-world physical components and machines that we deal with in the real world. If all those variables, would I have had to have foreknowledge and have predicted the requirements before I built the technology?
Again, I'm not quite sure what you're saying here, because human designed things were human designed, yes. But the temporal systems that you're describing, those can happen as human designed things or naturally in physics. The temporal information processing that can have altered effects based off of the time, or however you phrase it, can happen in physics without human design. So the human design ones were definitely human designed.
I'm talking about in controlled environments that have specifically prescribed outcomes.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. So when you talk about a temporal system that can process information and react at a certain time period to have a certain outcome, that happens in physics all the time without any humans.
I'm talking about technology.
Human design things like technology are all human designed. And
what I'm saying is that if you're agreeing that for human design technologies to be able to have those outcomes, and the point I'm making is if the exact same type of logic rules and physical machines, in this context, nanomachines, and their functional outcomes have the exact same logic rules that we would apply to any other form of human technology, and we agree they would require that those things in the human world require intelligence.
Well, no, that's the part we disagree on. So I agree that human designed things were human designed, but the information behind them does not need to be human designed. So there are information of the if-then statements, as you put it, or the time interval statements. All of that can exist naturally without any human design. In human design, they only exist with human design, but those same things, the same kinds of processes, the if-then statements and the information processing, exist in things humans didn't design also. So yes, I mean, cars and computers aren't going to pop out into nature because there's no natural process to make those. But the information used to produce cars and information in computers and things is just used by nature to do other things. Like the logic systems, that's a part of reality. It's just a part of the universe. Everything in the universe has a logical system to it. We choose to build cars, whereas nature builds universes and crystals and solar systems and tornadoes.
Okay, so the reason I'm talking about this in terms of biology is, and this is why I was asking your knowledge of things as simple as gene expression. For a gene to be expressed, it requires multiple nanomachines, not just pure chemical reactions. They are physical nanomachines.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so one of which spins at 100,000 revolutions per second.
I agree. I agree.
No, the flagellum, that's totally different than we're talking about. Okay. That's nothing to do with DNA transcription.
Okay.
But
so yes, I agree. It's complicated. There's lots of machines involved, lots of coding. Yes.
Okay. So if those machines are required for the expression and the execution of the sequence information that is housed in the DNA, and it requires additional other separate components to all work in unison to have the desired outcome. And there are known things such as like the chaperone proteins, which actually alter what would be the normal chemical reaction outcome, both physically and chemically, alter what would be just the standard undirected outcome.
10 minutes.
How can you take the position that those types of executions in biology are any different than the things that we're talking about on the macro level and things of human design technology?
Because of testable predictions. Like if we have any
No.
event, that's literally the answer to your question. Like, why would I conclude that the information and the complexity of the cell is not human designed as opposed to being, and why do I prefer natural processes? Well, the reason is because testable predictions. If we have two hypotheses, like what knocked over that cup, maybe it was a squirrel, maybe it was a bird, and we want to conclude, well, which hypothesis is the one I should believe? Well, they're both hypotheses that could potentially explain the cup knocked over. Well, which one should we prefer is the one that makes testable predictions. If it makes testable predictions where you can confirm in a lab and the other one can't, well, we prefer the one with the predictions. And the one that makes predictions is the abiogenesis one. Like we make tons of them all the time and they're confirmed. Intelligent design makes none of them. Like it's definitely possible that the cell could be designed. That's not impossible at all. Of course it could be designed, but is there any reason to believe that? No, we were just making an argument from an analogy. You have a good hypothesis, but if you don't have any evidence to back it up, then it's just a hypothesis. So you need, again, some way to verify in the world external to our imagination that this thing is in fact designed as opposed to caused by natural processes. We have that for the natural processes. We have the testable predictions. We have nothing for intelligent design other than arguments from analogy, which are, again, just mental. They don't actually show because to count as evidence, again, you have to show there's a difference between imaginary and real. Just using imaginary analogies.
So real machines are... That is evidence, and the sequential code base that is required for their existence is real evidence. A code base and a language that has syntax, semantics, and pragmatics is real evidence. Now, whether or not you want to accept that it could all just exist through natural processes is up to you. But the improbabilities are so mind-bending. But the implausibility of a code base which requires nanomachines in order for it to be executed, which are now being agreed need to have existed simultaneously and to have quote unquote co-evolved in order for, it's the ultimate chicken and egg problem. If you're now going to extrapolate that out to the most complex things they're now coming to the realization that the cell has machine learning capabilities. Yep. And is being able to write new functions on the fly, but is using nanotech that makes the best things that we've come up with look like a joke.
But yet none of that's evidence. Those are all observations. Those aren't evidence.
Observations of basic evidence. Just because we can't recreate it in the lab, that actually speaks to how complicated it is and why the probability of non-controlled chemical functions and executions and processes being the result of, that's a joke, man. To actually think that. You can think that all you want. And you talk about, living in imaginary land. That is living in the imaginary land of...
Yes, it's a hypothesis. That's how hypotheses work. The difference is that a hypothesis of an imaginary being doing it, which we have no basis of, versus a hypothesis of a probabilistic natural process, which means at least it has some probability of doing it. The some probability is better because it actually has some demonstrable capabilities in the real world, whereas the imaginary being has none. Like saying that it was designed by a designer is no different than saying it was designed by a magical pixie unicorn. There's no evidence to any of those things. You have to actually provide the evidence. You said it's complex. Yes, it's complex.
So again, and let's not go down the philosophical rabbit hole of the watchmaker analogy, but if I really don't understand how, let's say we have a time machine, we go back and you left your cell phone and somebody found it a zillion years later, are they actually going to think that your cell phone was not designed by an intelligent agent?
Well, the correct method is to say, we don't know what caused this thing. Is it a designer or is it natural processes?
When you look at, if you took apart a cell phone that you found and nobody knew what they were, and you looked at it, do you actually think that people looking at a cell phone and it taking it apart,
the cell phone, we know cell phones are designed. So pick an abstract object.
I'm talking if we go back in time.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Left one. No, that's not going abstract.
Circular reasoning to use a cell phone. So if we come up to a complex object, we don't know.
A sane.
We know a cell phone was designed, so I'm going to say a cell phone was designed. But if we come up to an object that we do not know was designed, and it's a complex object, anyone who includes a design is an idiot. The only reasonable conclusion is we don't know what caused this, and so we should make hypotheses. Was it design? Was it natural processes, and then we make predictions. And we say, if it's natural processes, we would expect to see X, Y, Z. If it was design, we expect to see A, B, C. And we look to see which ones we discover. And the ones we discover, that's the correct hypothesis.
Okay.
So again,
if I dropped a printed out piece of paper with the
we already
source,
know design, so
with the source code of YouTube's in front of you, you don't necessarily know what that language is, but would you immediately conclude that it was written by somebody?
I already know it's designed because I already know it's a human design thing.
Okay, so if everything else that we would
again, you'd have to pick an example of something that isn't
at some point. Well, you're the one that's denying that anything else outside of what we already know and we have observed and seen somebody design is the only thing that can be reasonably classified as having been designed by an intelligent agent. What I'm saying is that if you are creating a set of blinders and refusing, and it's like, okay, we have no idea who invented the first wheel. We know it was a human. However, we didn't see them. Therefore, that human mustn't have existed. That intelligent agent that created the first wheel didn't exist.
No.
I'm saying it's the equivalent of.
No. Again, so again, my argument is that if we come to an object that we do not know whether it was designed or not designed, the correct thing is to know, I don't know what caused this. It could be designed. It may not be designed, and then make predictions. Whichever one's predictions are correct, that's the one we go with. So we don't presume it's one or the other.
I'm pretty sure at the beginning of this, you just said we just need to dismiss any possibility of intelligent design.
No, absolutely not. I agree that intelligent design is possible. It's just there's no evidence for it.
And the point I'm making is, again, would the genetic code is a code. It has
the genetic code is complicated. We don't know how it
No, it's not complicated. It is a code that also is complicated.
Yes, it is a complicated code.
It has multiple variable options. Yes. It allows for temporal controls. It allows
none of that's evidence.
Functions.
Yes, none of that's evidence. That's just here's something we can't explain yet. So what caused it?
Okay, and the point is that, again, comparing it to a computer code
is an argument. So it's not evidence.
It's not actually. Are you familiar with translational pausing, which has been classified
in the argument from analogy? So
no.
To be evidence, you can't just compare it to other things. You need to make predictions.
Temporal pausing was classified as a computer code in frontiers and bio.
So again, to be evidence, you can't just compare it to other things. That's an argument from analogy. If in order to be evidence, you have to make predictions.
If it can, and the predictions are that it follows all of the requirements to be classified as a computer code.
That's an observation. We already know that. To be a prediction, you have to predict something we don't know.
So again, are you saying that computer codes can create themselves?
No, I never said that.
Okay, so you just said that I compared it into something that is classified as a computer code.
Yes.
But even though computer code...
You're breaking up again. Wait a second. You're breaking up again.
So
you're breaking up. You're breaking up. Pause for a minute.
Somehow this one did through natural process.
Okay, you broke up. Could you repeat that?
Okay, so you just said that computer codes wouldn't create themselves.
Yes.
And even though I just told you that the temporal pausing redundancy double syntax
DNA isn't a computer code. It's a code. It's not a computer code.
Okay, and as I was trying to explain to you, yes, it has been considered a programming language in a computer code, and it's also been
programming language. Yes, it's not a computer code. A computer code is literally a code for computers. So
okay, actually, cybernetics was originally founded on the what they were seeing in biology and the genetic code. So that's actually not true. It's actually a
computer program. Computer code is a program or code set of instructions forming a computer program, which is included by a computer. Done. So again,
can a computer the logic rules that enable a computer? You're
breaking up again.
You don't have to be.
You're breaking up. Wait. You broke up again. Repeat that.
Yeah, I heard you. I'm gonna get on my phone. Hang on. I'll be back.
Okay, well, we've got 5 minutes left on the discussion anyway, so once John gets back, I'll start the clock up again for 5 last minutes. And looks like we got lots of good questions from the audience, so we will, we can jump into quick closings, just to wrap it up, a couple of minutes, and then we'll have a good Q&A.
Sounds good. Let me get some water.
Awesome. Take your time.
Yeah, I got a question, I guess. I mean, one was sent to me personally, so I'll have to probably asked that question. It was from, let's see here. Jesus paid it all, so yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Braze.
Look at Tom's freaking chair there, gosh.
He could debate for 10 hours without a sore back or sore neck with that thing. Luckily, we've John, and luckily your audio really only had a couple times of messing up there. So for I'd say 95% of the debate, it all came through well. So no worries, John. You might not have heard us while you're gone, but we got 5 minutes left on the clock for the discussion. So once you guys start going at it again, I'll start the clock. We'll jump into really quick closings and then a Q&A. Okay.
Okay, so I think where you left off was the information required to make a computer code, like the if-then statements, is also required in DNA. And my position is those if-then statements also are in everything in the universe. And so, you can make them with natural processes. You don't need a designer to make if-then statements.
Okay. So as actually where we left off was I'd asked you if computer codes could create themselves. You said no.
Yeah.
And then class said that it is
actually, they might be able to in the future. They can't yet.
Well, yeah. Then but the way they would come in the future would be through machine learning capabilities of AI, but the requirement for those things to exist is intelligence. So prior to that being an option, just like in quantum computing, I doubt you would ever conclude that quantum computers could create themselves. So at least I hope not, because if you do, then that's a whole other debate. But anyway, where I'm going with all this is all of the foundational pieces of what constitutes a programming language and the ultimate outcome are embodied in the genetic code in a variety of ways that are significantly superior to the best thing that we have ever come up with as humans.
Well, sure. The requirements for a programming language are logic, and logic is just a function of the universe. So
well,
yes,
there's more to it than just logic, but there's
literally everything in it.
There's syntax, semantics, pragmatics,
which is all a part of logic.
Okay, so earlier you couldn't tell me how the syntax applied to the genetic code, and it doesn't exist, even though it does.
Well, no, syntax is a conception, so it means it is a unity or a relationship between things. So there's lots of different syntaxes in lots of different things, including
true.
DNA.
But in terms of coding and programming, there are very specific rules that are required, and those rules are assigned by intelligent agents. They're arbitrary. There's arbitrary assignment. So is arbitrary assignment of values, are you saying that does not require intelligence?
No, the choices of what the values are and what the relationships are is arbitrary, but the possible relationships are not. Those are determined by logic. So we just choose between an already existing...
I asked you is intelligent. I didn't say whether you use logic or not. Of course you use logic. I asked if intelligence is required to assign the arbitrary values.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you just randomly assign them, but we do use.
Well, you could, but intelligence would be required to randomly assign them too, right? You have to have a random generator, which had to have been created by an intelligent agent, right?
Well, no, random generators exist in nature to
specifically assign two different sets of arbitrary values to be encoded, decoded, encoded, transmitted, and decoded.
Yes, that exists in physics all the time, where arbitrary sets of values are selected for particles, and those are specifically read like entanglement at specific times and specific intervals. Those happen all the time in nature.
Okay, if you're trying to equate quantum entanglement with arbitrarily assigned syntax for coding.
Yes, that's literally what it is.
Okay, so you're saying that there is nothing.
That's how quantum computers work.
No. Okay. I was talking about quantum. Yeah, you said quantum entanglement. The interesting.
Right.
I just wanted to jump in, guys. We have 1 minute left on the clock. I'm not sure how you guys want to spend that last minute, but let's just wrap it up and we'll go right into some quick closings.
We can just go into the closings. That's fine.
Yeah, if that's cool. I just didn't want to cut anyone off unless they had another point they wanted to make. But if you guys are happy with how it's ended, we can jump into a couple closings. Why don't we? Who started? John,
I
you started.
I'll
So why
close.
don't we hand it over to you? Take a couple minutes just to wrap up your thoughts, and then we'll go on to Tom.
All right. So this debate, if we can actually call it that, was another example of the tremendous effort made by TJump and many of the folks like him, but him especially, to circumvent any kind of real conversation and debate over the subject by shifting things around and trying to apply purely philosophical arguments to reality. And to try and explain and things such as codes, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, programming languages, and the different aspects of those principles that enable life to exist, and nanotechnologies and robots and all different things that we have here as having no difference between that and two rocks coming together, to me just exemplifies a strong effort to avoid truly contemplating whether or not it is a more logical and plausible conclusion that the evidence, which people all going all the way back to Dawkins have said looks designed, and just make sure you turn off that rational portion of your brain. Otherwise, you won't be able to avoid that conclusion. An interesting quote from a paper by, I can't really pronounce these guys' names, V.A. Gusev and D. Schultz-Makic. The origin of the code is perhaps the most perplexing problem in evolutionary biology. The existing translational machinery is at the same time so complex, so universal, and so essential that it's hard to see how it could have come into existence, or how life could have existed without it. And the irony of the paper I'm looking at right now, directly below that, is the syntax, semantics, and pragmatics charts and all the logic rules that they've outlined there. But ultimately, this, and I think people watching have to ask themselves this question, is if you actually go down and actually look at the processes of biology and the things that we are now recognizing that weren't even known 20 years ago, such as translational palsy, which we didn't even get into, literally acts as a 3D printing logic controls for the ribosome and is embedded in the syntax of the codons, which both represent the amino acid needed and how it should be ultimately shaped and the protein synthesis outcome should happen. We have things such as microRNAs, which can alter the outcome of literally thousands of different genes. And so you take the exact same data and then insert this and it has a different outcome. The list goes on of things that in any other context would be considered genius and have required incredible foreknowledge, foresight, and design capabilities, and yet are now being put forth as random occurrences that are capable of existing through purely natural processes. Ask yourself if that is a reasonable conclusion, and I encourage you to actually go and do research and look beyond the talking points that are put forth by so many who do not want you to even consider the premise of an intelligent agent.
Thank you so much for that concluding statement there, John. We appreciate it. On to you, Tom. Take your time.
Yeah, all right. So I'd just like to start with the definition of an argument from an analogy fallacy. An argument from analogy is a special type of inductive argument whereby perceived similarities are used as a basis to infer some further similarity that is yet to be observed. That last part there is the most important, yet to be observed. Like if you want to say, is the complexity encoding in the DNA caused by a mind? That's a possibility, but for it to be evidence, you have to actually observe that. You have to demonstrate it. Just using an argument from analogy and saying, well, it's like our code isn't evidence. That's just all imaginary. For something to count as evidence, you need some way to differentiate between what's imaginary and what's real. And science, that's what science does. Like debates about ID are just a waste of time. As P.Z. Myers articulately put it, science is settled in the lab. If you want to actually do science, go to the lab, and you can just prove this in 5 minutes if you want. make testable predictions, confirm them correct, and you have evidence for ID. That's all it takes. Science doesn't care about analogies or philosophy. The irony of what he said is I'm not using any philosophical arguments. I'm just straight up asking for evidence. Demonstrate it in the lab, or you've got nothing. And he has done none of that. All he said is argument from analogy, argument from analogy, argument from incredulity, argument from ignorance. Like, we don't know it, therefore designer. Oh, it's really complicated, and we do really complicated stuff, therefore designer. Or, oh, we've seen design stuff, and we do design stuff, and oh, it's kind of like that, therefore designer. Like, that's an argument from analogy, an argument from incredulity, and an argument from ignorance. None of those are evidence. We know none of those are evidence. We've known those are not evidence since the time of Plato and Aristotle and Socrates, because they don't work. That's why we use science. Science says for something to be evidence, demonstrate it in a lab. If you don't do that, you have no evidence. Just saying it's kind of like the stuff we do isn't evidence. You need to make novel, testable predictions. Abiogenesis does that repeatedly, which is why pretty much everybody in science accepts it, because it's supported by evidence, and ID is rejected because it's not supported by evidence, which is why it was ruled to be a pseudoscience in a federal court case by a Christian judge. There's nothing there. It's just a bunch of philosophical, fallacious arguments we know don't work.
All right. Thanks for that concluding statement there, Tom. We appreciate it. Thanks again for giving us your time, gentlemen. We do have a good Q&A, but just to respect the time of the debaters, unfortunately, we might not be able to get through all of the questions, but we'll get through as many as we can. So why don't we get right to it then? We'll start with Luca. Luca, thanks for your question. This one is for, this one's for John. So John, Luca asks, why do we only have carbon-based life? Why not silicone one?
Well, it's there's actually quite a few papers on this in the organic chemistry world, but I forget all the exact details. But the
silicon can't make as many complex combinations of fusions. That's why.
Thanks for interrupting my sentence again. That's basically what I was about to say. Next question.
Okay, so if that's all you guys have there, let's go right to the next question from Anthony Maurice. Anthony asks, question for Tom. He says, my question for Tom is he aware that chemists use manipulated controlled conditions and activated nucleotides and purified reagents that would never be found on an early Earth?
They don't need to be found on early Earth. Like, no one cares about that yet. The goal is just to find out how natural processes can produce the information, as ID proponents call it, to produce life. You don't actually need to be the early Earth atmosphere. It just needs to be any natural processes. And then we can discover which ones happened on the early Earth much later. But the first thing is to discover how natural processes can do this, not how they happened necessarily on the early Earth. So it doesn't actually matter whether or not those specific ones happened on the early Earth or not. It's not relevant.
Okay. We can allow a quick response.
Yeah, that does have relevance to whether or not it's a conclusion of life's existence and not the result of intelligent agents being able to manipulate the variables to build something.
Oh, all right. So they don't manipulate the variables in the experiment. They just set the experiment up with a specific set of variables.
Actually, they admit that they manipulate it by stopping them and starting them and providing the purified environments and the purified chemicals. And I mean, that's really admitted. I mean, Clements Richard back in 2008.
They can't do the experiment without starting it and stopping it. They literally have to do those things, and they have to actually put the pieces together and then start it. So, yeah, but none of that's actually relevant to the question. So, yes, they always put the pieces together, and then they press the start button, and then they press the stop button when it's over. Yes, obviously.
Okay. If you're actually looking for research in abiogenesis and you're not putting it in a realistic environment, then you're not actually researching abiogenesis.
Well,
you're researching whether or not you can,
wrong,
as a human, can cause an outcome and put on. And
abiogenesis isn't the origin of life on Earth. Abiogenesis is the origin of life. It doesn't matter if it happened on Earth. The early Earth atmosphere isn't relevant to abiogenesis. It's only relevant to abiogenesis on Earth. The first thing we're trying to discover is how abiogenesis can happen. anywhere in the universe. And then once we discover the spectrum of what is required for abiogenesis, then we can narrow it down to try and figure out how it happened on Earth. But first, we're just trying to discover how it could happen anywhere in the universe by any natural processes. That's the first thing. It's how science works. Like trying to discover how it happened on Earth first would make no sense at all.
Okay. Well, the more than a few of those folks have literally stated that it would require a miracle for it to.
Given no natural processes, but that's it. We can always just discover tomorrow that it's
That's based on natural processes. It would be a miracle.
no natural processes. It could just be unknown natural processes that do it. Just like anything, it's like not a problem.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Thanks for that, guys. Like I said, it's been a very lively discussion. The chat, everyone is enjoying. So let's keep her going. We've got Call Me Emo. His question is for John. I'll read it word for word. Thanks for your question, Emo. He asks, if all minds we know of are the product of biological brains, and brains need bodies to build stuff, are you implying that your designer is also a biological entity? Take your time, John.
Not necessarily. I mean, with the with what we're discovering in quantum mechanics regarding the ability for consciousness to control matter and physical outcomes, then it doesn't necessarily require a physical force. It requires consciousness to have the end outcome.
Okay, thanks for that. Do you want a quick response, Tom, or move on to the next?
Yeah, the consensus is that consciousness doesn't have any effect in physics at all. I think the last poll showed that it's less than 2 to 6% of physicists actually agree that consciousness collapsed. The Wigner-von Neumann hypothesis is actually a legitimate thing. So 90-something% say nope, it doesn't.
Now you're going back to authority. And if you actually go and
not appeal to authority is only a fallacy if it's not actually an authority. So I'm actually allowed to do that.
Well, but I think that same study said that 50-something% of them do think that consciousness has some element to it. And if you read the papers,
no, it was 90% don't. It was 6% do.
They think that consciousness does. There was another variable in there, I believe, that said, "Do you think consciousness has some impact?" And if you go and if you watch interviews with some of the leading minds out there, the only reason that they say that it's not consciousness is, oh, well, there was no consciousness at the beginning of the universe because therefore. Okay, then I think you should go watch some of the.
I literally know
where they
spoke with Sean Carroll about this. Like, that's not why. It's because it makes no testable predictions. It makes no verifiable results. It has no impact. Wigner himself refuted his own theory and said he was wrong to apply micro systems of quantum mechanics to macro systems of consciousness.
So the fact that they've started figuring out and have done test experiments where it goes all the way up to the macro level within the last couple of years is starting to circumvent that.
No, it's not. Like literally everything in quantum mechanics is explained by all of the different interpretations, which is why only 6% accept quantum consciousness collapse. Like all of those same experiments are explained by the many worlds interpretation, the EPR, the quantumness collapse, the quantum pilot wave theory. All of them explain the exact same things. None of them make novel predictions. That's why none of them are accepted as a majority yet.
Okay, so 2018 from guys who've done quite a few of these experiments. Taken together, these experiments indicate that the everyday world we perceive does not exist until observed, which in turn suggests, and we shall argue in this essay, a primary role for mind in nature. It is thus high time for the scientific community at large, not only in those involved in foundations of QM, faced up to the counterintuitive implications of QM's most controversial predictions.
Which is, again, only accepted by 6% of the people in the field, which is why it's like, okay, there are papers that are published in it, which 6% of the people who are in physicists do publish papers arguing for that, which is not accepted by 90% of them. That's kind of the point, is that, yes, there are some who do support that, 6%, but the majority say, no, that's not supported.
And so the guys that are actually doing the experiments are the ones that are saying that, yes, it is a reality.
6% of the ones doing the
but there's always physicists that deny it.
Yeah, 90% of them deny it. Yes. Like like
I'm pretty sure that was
5%
just pure
of biologists don't reject evolution.
not
5% of climate scientists deny
Okay.
climate change.
All right.
There's always a minority. It's not, there isn't evidence of anything.
Hey guys, let's move on to the next one. Like I said, lots of good questions here. This question is from Conflict 34. Thanks for your question. Let me see. This one's for Tom. He says, so evolutionists claim DNA is evidence because of similarities, but using DNA as a similarity to computer codes is not evidence? Question mark.
Well, no, the evidence, DNA isn't evidence because of similarities. DNA is evidence because of testable predictions. It's the fact that we can make testable predictions that makes it evidence, not the fact that it, I don't know what you mean by similarities. Like, no one in evolution uses just similarities in DNA as the evidence. It's the testable predictions that are the evidence.
Okay, let's move on to the next.
Did I just hear that? Hang on. Did I just hear that nobody in evolution science uses similarities? I'm pretty sure that
As the evidence.
the similarities in genes is directly used as evidence. I mean,
No, it was
do you not know how the molecular clock whole deal?
It's not that they looked at the
The
similarities.
direct
and then
comparison of
post
the, of the sequences of the DNA sequences comparison and similarities in terms of functional outcome
By
of the
testable
code
prediction.
base, which you claim doesn't have.
by
It wasn't
testable predictions.
It wasn't testable predictions. They
Yeah.
literally matched them up to see if they matched or not. That's it.
Yeah, they made predictions about what would happen, and then they tested those predictions by looking at them and saying, yes, they do match the results we expect. Therefore, that's evidence.
Okay.
So that's how evidence works: is you make predictions and then you confirm them in a lab. That's what science is.
All right. Okay, let's go on to the next question then. Let me see here. This question is from Mitchell. Question is for TJump. Without intelligent design, what ultimate eternal energy created the universe without invoking the theory using a multiverse generator? Take your time.
There's actually infinitely many possible theories that could do that. You just have an eternal, all-powerful natural thing. And there are natural theories that exist outside of space-time, like Nima Arkani-Hamad's amplituhedron and Sean Carroll's emergent space-time, just to name two. Like, there's nothing that shows that natural things can't exist outside of space-time. We have theories that they do. Like, there's literally anything the supernatural could explain, the unknown natural can also explain. So that's why we require testable predictions and evidence to actually verify things.
Quick response, John, or move on to the next question?
Let's move on.
Okay, so this question is from Speed of Sound of Gravity. Question is for, he doesn't specify, I'm guessing it's for you, John. He says, did you guys know that the codon code is not the same in every organism?
It is nearly universal. There's some very slight modifications, and looking into those, but they actually, several papers I've read recently, they're actually seeing that those slight modifications actually have very specific modifications in very specific organisms, not from a anyway, there's a bunch of papers on that whole deal. But yes, I'm aware of the slight modifications, but it is generally universal across the board.
Okay, thanks for that. You know, Speed of Sound actually had a second question. His question, John, was what is the link to the Royal Society article or the article about semantics, syntax, and pragmatics, or the full name of the paper? Did you want to just provide that to him after, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so question from Gavin Hurleyman. Thanks for your question. Question is for TJump. Where does the code for DNA come from? And in brackets, he says it's not from RNA.
From RNA.
Okay, let me see. A couple more questions here. Question from Jesus Paid It All. Question is for Tom. Let me see, I lost it here. There we go. What in genetics would convince you of a god?
Testable predictions. Like, I don't know what specific testable predictions you can make using intelligent design. Like, for example, you could predict that if an intelligent designer designed it, we would be able to find a specific line of code that's read, my name is Bob and I designed the genetic code. That would be one example. Like, any testable predictions you could make would be evidence. Like, it doesn't, that's a really weird example, but just testable predictions. That's all you need.
Well, I'm gonna respond to that one. It is such an obvious answer that it does not require a signature, as in
Oh yeah, you're right.
a physical name. But no, when I'm going all this is the fact that it operates as a information processing system, a communication system, and has programming, logic, rules, semantics, syntax, and pragmatics, and nothing else, in spite of your denial, has that in the context of technology application and prescribed application outside of things that have been intelligently designed. That is the evidence that's required, and you can either accept that or deny it. It doesn't change the fact that it exists.
Yeah, that's just an argument from analogy. We know that doesn't work.
No, it's not an argument from analogy. It's a literal.
It's literally the definition, which is why I read it as my rebuttal or my conclusion. It's literally the definition of an argument.
Except for all the papers that literally go into the fact this is not an analogy. It is this. I mean, if you're going to deny that the fact that those papers exist, then so be it. But they literally start the papers off with, I know it's been called, and there's been all this conversation and confusion and disagreement, but here's why it is exactly what is being described, not just an analogy.
And it's still rejected by the majority of everyone in biology because it's an argument from analogy.
I guess the $10 million it's up for grabs for whoever can recreate a coding, translation, and decoding system that follows information theory in an exact same structure. I guess that doesn't exist, even though it's being endorsed and judged by some of the top academic institutions on this planet.
Yeah, we haven't found it yet. That's not evidence. That
No, they're trying to recreate one.
Yeah, we haven't found the correct way to do that yet.
No, we're talking about what is required for it. So you're saying that it's just an analogy, and I'm saying that and you're saying that it's a completely acceptable academia. It's just an analogy. What I'm telling you is that there's $10 million on the line for somebody who can do it in a literal fashion, not an analogy fashion.
Yes,
because the one that's in our bodies and all organic life is exactly that.
No. So that is, again, that's an argument from incredulity. We haven't found it yet.
I'm not the one being incredulous. I'm talking about what they are saying. That it is no longer an analogy. It's a literal.
It's still an argument from analogy.
Literal, not analogy. Literal, not analogy. Is that not computing with you?
No. You're not getting it. So the fact that we haven't discovered a solution to this problem yet isn't evidence it's not an analogy. So that's an argument from ignorance. We don't know something yet. Therefore, you can't do that. You can't go, we don't know, therefore.
I don't think you're following what I'm saying here.
I'm pretty sure.
No, I think you don't, because what the prize is for is to create a system that can do exactly what ours does.
Yes. I agree with that. We haven't done it yet.
A different model.
We haven't done it yet.
Correct. They haven't done it yet, but that's not the point. The point is that what they're requiring you to do is not an analogy to coding, decoding, and programming. It is literal, not analogy. And that is the entire point that I'm making. You're claiming that it's an argument of analogy. They're saying, no, it is not just an analogy. It is a literal.
Right. I agree there is coding.
Okay.
I said that like multiple times. I agree it does do coding. That's not the analogy part. The analogy part is humans did the coding. Therefore, there is a brain, or minds did the coding. Therefore, there is a mind that did this coding. That's the analogy.
Which is why I asked you earlier, do you think that any other type of coding and programming could exist without intelligence? To which you said no.
Not that we know of. The humankind. We know that physics does it perfectly well.
Physics does not create coding. Okay, next question.
Okay, so thanks for that, gentlemen. We've got Faithful, Honest, and True. He asks, TJump, who almost lost that one there. Okay, here we go. Who set the laws of quantum mechanics in motion? Go ahead.
It was reality did that. So it's not a who, it's a what. Reality. It's the nature of reality itself.
Okay, thanks for that response. And last question of the night comes from Jesus is Lord. Question is for TJump. Can you explain the difference between intelligent design and creationism?
Nope, they're the same thing. They are literally the same thing. Or, I mean, you could say one's more of a general category, like all roses are flowers, not all flowers are roses. So creationism says a specific thing created it, usually a god of a Christian god, whereas intelligent design just says any kind of intelligence can explain this kind of process. So it's more of like a more general version, but they are both the same kind of thing, like all flowers or all roses are flowers.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Quick response, John, or?
No, it's obvious that worldviews completely differ, and I guess from TJump's perspective, humans aren't actually smart enough to be able to determine if there is something that requires intelligence unless we physically observe the original execution of it.
Not the original. I'd say you need to be able to observe some testable consequences. We know that humans are stupid and make up imaginary things all the time, like Zeus and Yahweh and all kinds of religious beliefs, and fairies and leprechauns and unicorns. And so we need someone to differentiate between the imaginary stupid stuff we make up and reality, which is why you need the testable predictions.
Okay, well, thanks so much, guys. Like I said, this was a great discussion. We got to most of the questions in the audience, so thanks for the questions, guys. Lots of good ones. Yeah, thanks to the debaters for giving us their time. And if you guys want to say a few last words, plug in your channels or something, you can do so now, and then we'll call it a night.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, my channel is youtube.com/TJump. I do debates with usually academic professors and philosophers on these kinds of topics, and feel free to check out my channel.
Thanks for everybody making it through. Sorry for my technical issues. If you want to check out my stuff, just search logical, plausible, probable, and it'll come right up. And have some more videos coming out this week, and hopefully have a few more debates over this next couple weeks as well. So wait out for announcements of those.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And yeah, no worries. I'd say over 95% of the debate came out well. There's a couple little technical issues, but for the most part, non-existent. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Check out next debate would be Friday. Like I said, 9 EST. Bill Morgan versus Jordan from Reasons to Doubt on creation versus evolution. So I'm going to hand it over to Praise to shut it down. Once again, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure hosting this debate, but I'm going to have an after show. People can come on if they want, but I'm going to end it here. I want to say thank you for everyone in the chat coming, and TJump and John and SFT. I'm going to say God bless and good night.